Hi, welcome back to the Budget Mechanic. I'm so glad you came back to find out more about personal budgeting and all the things that you can do to tweak your budget to become a high-performing machine to meet your goals. Last week, we talked about developing your budget and doing it a little bit differently rather than doing it looking backwards to look forwards. So some of the things that we did is we used a specific tool called YNAB to start that, but you can do that on paper, Excel, Google Sheets, anything like that. When you first develop the budget, get the money that you have right now and allocate that or budget it to your regular bills that you have every month. So your mortgage, your groceries, everything like that. We know that everybody also has expenses that don't occur every month. Things like insurance, or if you own a car, you have license plates, a driver's license, school tuition. There's just a wide variety of things that could come up on an irregular basis. So that's what we're going to talk about today and how to do those. Within the irregular expenses, I've talked about it before in one of my videos about expenses that I'll tag up as well, is that some are irregular expenses, but they are known. So examples of that would be insurance, property tax. If you're paying tuition, you know you're going to pay it. You have a very good idea of how much you're going to pay when it is due. Those ones are easier because you can figure out how to save up so much every month building that goal. Now, the other type of irregular expense that's out there, and we'll talk about it as well, are items where you know it's going to happen, but you don't know when or how much. Really good examples of this are car maintenance. You have a car, you're going to need maintenance. Now your oil change, you have a fairly good idea. But if you have a car that's not under warranty and you have to do some major repairs, or you have a car accident and you have to pay deductibles. Another example would be pets, vet bills, house maintenance, another great example. So with those, again, there is a way to develop that, incorporate it into your budget, and we'll talk about that as well. So what we're going to do now is we're going to flip over YNAB tool, the You Need a Budget tool. That is the one that I use to do this because it really helps with the math. It does the math for me. It's got some formulas, some really great tools in there. However, as I've mentioned, you can incorporate these ideas into a pen and paper solution, into Excel or Google Sheets as well. You just have to know that you're going to need to do the math yourself and keep up on the maintenance of that. Just before we pop over to YNAB, don't forget to subscribe so you can be notified of new videos as we make them. With that, let's jump over. Okay, we're back in our budget in YNAB, and it is now a payday. We've got $1,500 from our paycheck that we can use to pay our bills. Now, one of the things that we're going to look through and we say, okay, we looked at, and we realized that last month we paid our tenant insurance. Our tenant insurance was due in December and it was $240. So that would be an example of something that we can go and look at, plan for that going forward because it's a known expense. We know we're going to pay $240 or around that amount next December. So let's make it into our budget and incorporate that and save a small amount each month and build that up to have it when the bill is now due. And these are where you start making those choices so that you know you have them. So it's not a recurring cost, so you might want to put it under your, when I say not recurring cost, it's not a monthly cost, so you might not want to put it in your monthly bills. You could put it in your irregular expenses. You could put it wherever it works for you. We're going to add it in our irregular expenses and we're going to call it tenant insurance and we'll hold it there for now. So the good thing about here is we can use your targets on here. Now, one of the things about targets here in YNAB is it can get confusing if you don't understand how they work and they've got some timing. So we'll talk about that later on once we've become more comfortable with these things. You can simulate this. So one of the things that we can do is we can put in a note here, $240 due December 15th. So that will tell us our note. We've got $240 and we are going to set aside $20 per month for that bill. So what we would do then, we've got the notes, we can make those as detailed as we want, but we want to have that quick look. We can update the name of the category and just put $20 per month. And now I'm going to assign $20. So now I'm building up $20. Next paycheck, I can add more money for that month. So in February, I can add $20. It could come off my first paycheck. It could come off my last one, $10 each paycheck. That's something else you could do. You could change this to $10 per paycheck. Like you could count the number of paychecks you have before you have to pay that bill and calculate it that way. So it does work with the budgeting by paycheck method. And then you have that incorporated. The interesting thing here is this money can be sitting in either your checking or savings account. This is where we talk about don't get categories and accounts put together, because now you're saving $20. Now for this, as you've done this, because you've matched your emergency fund here to the savings account, that's where you have it. But over time, you could have this $20 and move it to your savings account, and it won't matter. You have the money between the two accounts. What happens is, do you look at your budget first? Do I have money there? And then look at the account you need to take it from. The other thing that you can do is we can create that recurring transaction. We can actually set up that annual transaction, and it becomes a bit of a buffer as well to help us remind us that we have to do this tenant insurance. So if for some reason we get off track and it gets closer and it's in the month of December, that scheduled transaction will tell us, hey, you have to pay this $240. You don't have enough, budget some more in here. Say for example, our tenant insurance comes from our checking, so we can add the transaction and we would flip forward to December. Now you can add transactions in the future. That is different than your transactions, your budgeting. So this is something we know is going to happen in the future, and we are going to pay the insurance company, and it's in our tenant insurance. We could put a note here. We could also say it's the $240 and it's going to be $240. We could say anything in here that we want because we'll have that money. We could change it to apartment and contents and click save. And you'll notice what it does is it tells us that this transaction is going to come up in December. It's sitting there waiting as another reminder of something. And we come back to the budget and we have, we'll just scroll down and we can see that our tenant insurance is here. So that's the same thing like we've done here with Christmas. We've started that a little bit and we're just going to add there $100 per month as well. So those are things that happen on an ongoing basis. You know what's going to happen. You know when it's going to happen. You have a good idea of what the cost is going to be. You can put those and you can start making those savings. A lot of people have done those in little savings accounts. So, but rather than having to track all these accounts, you can track it here in one budget, and it allows you to move the money easier back and forth as well than it does in some of those checking accounts. I mean, a lot of those checking accounts, you have to move it, you have to track it somehow. You'll need to, this is just a much more simple way to do that. And then you don't need all of those accounts. Those are the two examples of ones where you know how much, when it's going to get paid. These are the things that you could do. The other example are things that you know are likely to happen. You don't know when, you don't know how much. So examples of that are medical costs. You don't know if you're going to get sick or hurt or need to pay anything. Up here in Canada, we're very lucky. We have universal health care, so a lot less in some ways, but we do have a lot of costs still. If you have pets, you can have your vets, those types of things, your toys that you're going to get. Gifts as well as a topic that you will know that you'll have gifts, but you could get a basis for gifts because you'll know some of them, but you'll have surprise ones come up, weddings, or maybe the birth of children that you weren't anticipating, funerals, gifts that you might send for condolences or flowers. You can do a very similar thing in that you would go ahead and start making some simple calculations, make some guesstimates. It's okay, remember, to be wrong or not know exactly, but make a guesstimate, start working towards it, and then over time, as you start spending, you'll see how much you spend and you'll be able to normalize it a bit. So let's say, for example, we had medical. So we had in medical, we had $200. That was a medication refill that we used as an example. You could have so you could have medication in here if you do physio or chiro or anything like that. You can estimate how much you're going to use every month and just keep building it. So let's say medical, we're just starting out, we didn't know, so we're going to add, we're just going to say it's $200 per month as well. And we've just happened to use it all. Let's say we know that we have some gifts coming up and we say we average about $50 a month in gifts. So the same thing, gift, and we're going to set $50 per month aside. And so we haven't set aside our $50 yet. Now you can do one of two things here. I can just overtype this with $50, but I can also use the plus sign. So if I need to add more money to here, I know it's going to be $25.01, and that will calculate the $50 for me. That also shows me that I've moved money around. Another common one for these types of things is your car maintenance. So we'll move up here, we'll unselect gifts. Car maintenance, another great example. You don't know when you're going to need it. You have some basics of oil changes and maybe your tire rotations if you live in a wonderful cold climate like here that we've talked about before, or anything like that. And so what you're going to want to do is start setting aside money. So let's say maybe you set aside $200 a month there as well, and you could put that in the notes, $200, and that's how you start to then build out your budget more and more for knowing what you need to do. This is also, it's helpful because now everything isn't just dumped underneath this emergency fund, because I think a lot of times emergency fund starts to kind of hold these things like car maintenance, medical, gifts that aren't really emergencies, but you haven't planned for them. So they're emergencies to you in the past. But going forward, you're starting to break that out. And then an emergency fund really does become an emergency for things that you haven't yet budgeted for, or that you completely were not expecting, maybe a death in the family, anything like that, a job loss. A lot of times it evolves into an income replacement fund. So you put money in there and that will become your income replacement should you lose your job and you expect to have 3 to 6 months worth of savings there. But you would potentially also have savings in all these other ones as well to help bridge that gap. As you get started with your budget, these topics might be a little bit slower. Maybe it's not $200. Maybe it's not gifts $50 a month. So over time, again, you'll build these up. And it's okay. Maybe at the beginning, you can't put that much money away. Maybe you have to start smaller. Maybe with your tenant insurance, you've got all your other bills over time. Maybe you can only put aside $5. That's okay too, because at least you're putting something there. You know that in the past you've always found the money. This just makes it that you have to find less next time. For example, remember up here where we had our natural gas and our electricity, and we didn't need to have more, and these are probably about the maximums you're going to use. You could take that money and then use it towards these longer term funds, or sinking funds they're sometimes called. You could put money there rather than them getting lost. I think a lot of times people want to take, oh, hey, my bill was only $64 and I've got $11 left. They lose sight of it. It just gets jumbled in. This way, with tracking your budget, you can purposely take that money and move it to where it works for you, rather than it just disappearing off into who knows where, eating out, or it gets picked up with that next emergency. Maybe the car maintenance just picks up all those savings. This helps you get to that point where you can just do it on your own and you can continue to go. That is how you can build in both sinking funds or regular expenses that are known, that have end due dates, or ones that are not known when and how much, but you know they're coming. And you can keep whatever it is works for you. That's the beauty of budgeting and making it personal finance. All right, so I hope that explanation and demonstration and YNAB really helped you start to understand the benefit of setting money aside for those irregular expenses, also known as sinking funds, so that you can prepare yourself going forward and not having to scramble to find money when these things come up. When you start to prepare, have that money set aside, whether it's $5, $200, whatever it takes to get you there, the less stress you'll have. You'll feel more comfortable, you'll feel more ready to take on those challenges, and they won't be challenges as much because a lot of times you'll just be like, oh, that bill came in, go look at my budget, boom, there it is, ready to pay it off, don't even think about it, and the relief will be so wonderful. So if you really like this video, please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to be informed of more videos coming up. Thanks and have a great day.